patiently waiting for you. And hopefully you've been patiently waiting for me too. Whoa, Lord, that took a long time. You know, it is, I always think when it is, well, it does happen like this, that, that's kind of quiet. That is, I wonder if you guys can hear me okay. When I just listened myself, it was kind of low, and I just wonder, so whenever somebody shows up on here, I'll see how the sound is, and yes, and see if there is something wrong with my volume. And I won't know that until I see somebody that says, hey, it's good or it's terrible. I don't know what that was, but I know that my volume wasn't where I normally hear it at when I come on. So I know that when it is like really wet like this, like it is, the humidity is high and it's raining, that normally I have some issues with my with the slowdown in how this internet works for me. And the funny thing is that I actually have a cable that runs into my house. It's not something else. So if there is something wrong with my connection, or if you can't hear me or something else, please say so that I can make some adjustments, because I know that it's, the moisture outside right now is just off the chain. And so yes, so oh, okay, so you can hear me. Okay, cool. I got some stuff to share today, and I'm just trying to really get myself together. Here, let me send out this are we meeting today. So I have an event that is happening this weekend. Just wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I want to light this candle too. I don't normally do that, but I the other day when I took a whiff of this, it was so good. And I know I have some matches in here somewhere. Matches. I do. From my favorite place I haven't been to in years, which is Papados. Haven't been there in years, and I miss taking little trips out of town just so I can go buy a Papados. Oh, I don't know about you guys, but sometimes food is just so good, and it's always good, but sometimes it's so good to just treat yourself. So good morning to you, and happy rainy day. It is a marvelous day in the neighborhood. I am, there is a part of me that's always holding out hope for like these Indian summer days and all this stuff. So when I took down, and this is not necessarily what I want to talk about today, but I'm kind of like creating some, so when I started taking down my outside stuff. I haven't taken everything in, and I took down most of my gazebo, or my gazebo is a steel framed gazebo. So the framing stays up, but I take down all the curtains and stuff. Well, I did not take the top off. And now it's cold and wet outside, and it's more than a notion to get that doggone thing down. So I need to I need some I want a warmer day, dry, warm days. I know that's a lot to ask, but I need to finish getting all of that stuff put away and bringing in the rest of the plants that I plan to keep and pulling up the rest of the garden so that I can do whatever I need to do with that. I don't even have freezer space for that stuff, but nonetheless, that is the process, the harvesting and all that stuff, whatever. So yes, I'm behind on the game but it's going to get done. I know it is. I hope that you guys are having an amazing time because I am. I am feeling extraordinarily blessed. And last night I attended the class. You know, I tell you guys, I've told you that I take a course out of with this Reverend Cherie that is living in California. She's originally from Cleveland, but I didn't know her from here. And she teaches a class on Bible stories. And so last night, after a week or so hiatus, because she was out of the country, we met again. And when I say we met, I love when I get a revelation, right? Or talk about a revolution, talk about a revelation. And we were talking about, because we're going through Exodus and different things, and whatever it is that we may believe about the Bible, there is a reason for those stories that have persisted over time. Some of them to tell us how much we've grown, and some of them to just show the human potential of what life is. I'm not telling you that if you don't cut your hair that you're going to be strong as Samson. I'm not even saying stuff like that. I'm not trying to talk to you about some fantastical stuff about whether or not there was an apple or any of that stuff. Good morning, James. I'm not even on that. What I am on is, as I look at the stories, there is this interesting way that, we have learned about this thing called God. And one of the things that I try to do is I try to create for the people who might listen to or talk to me this awareness that God is not this singular entity that is like you or I, that's kind of sitting there trying to see and have this all-seeing eye, but rather it is the stuff that we exist in. If you could think about it as a fabric of existence that we are all in, and if we don't think about it as transcending the awareness that we have of ourselves, and when you say, here's what I want to clean up too, is that when we say that God created us in its own image. Good morning, Winning Wednesday. Yes. So when we talk about this thing of God creating us in its own image, there was this wonderful line in there that said that as part of our, and I hate to use the word punishment, but part of what happened after they ate of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, it says he clothed them in skin. So you and I are a spiritual being that has been clothed in this skin suit. So just because we're walking around in a skin suit that is temporary, that by nature must, because it is matter, it is something that exists on this plane of existence. By nature, it's going to deteriorate and pass away. But because we are spiritual beings, we transcend time. And so just because we're in it doesn't mean that that will always be the case. So when you think about God more so as this amazing allness that we take part in, we get a different perception of ourselves and the stuff that we go through. So I love how when we read into the story, when we sit with it, when we breathe into it, we see that we're not separate and apart. And so yesterday, as we were talking about Exodus and the promised land, I have preached sermons on the promised land, right? I have talked about, because I thought it was amazing that, they went and they spied the promised land. They came back and they were, trying to show examples of how rich this land was, how rich the soil was. I know we talk about milk and honey and all of this stuff, right? But we don't know about streets of milk and honey. It's just a metaphorical term that we use. So they talked about how rich the soil was, and they said that those people are like giants and we are like grasshoppers by comparison. And they were saying there's no way that we can take them. There's no way that we can, that we can go in there. I may be shifting my stuff around, but that's not even the point that I wanted to make. That after all of this work, we saw the 10 Commandments, we saw when, Yul Brenner and what's that other guy's name? Oh gosh, whatever their names are. But we saw the 10 Commandments. We know the story of let my people go and leading them out of Egypt and out of bondage and all of that stuff. We know that stuff. But it was so interesting because the Moses that led them out was not the person who could lead them in. He couldn't lead them into the promised land. And, I had to, sometimes we think about, how all this work and all this toil he's done and all of this stuff. It's like, what do you mean? And so one of the things that Ernest Holmes says is that, no, it's somebody else, Charlton Heston. Thank you, darling. Hey, good morning, Sandra. One of the things that I've read, and I don't know that it's Ernest Holmes or somebody else that said it, but they said that we can't solve a problem at the same level of thinking that created the problem. There has to be something that happens. Now, I tell y'all how I am. I sit back and I listen to stuff. I listen to other people. And a lot of times, especially when it comes down to television, I want to just click the channel, like enough of you. Because I have a dialogue that goes on in my head, just like you do, right? I mess up a name and Sandra gives me a name, or I throw out an idea and somebody else adds to it. We all do that. And whether you are in total agreement with me or just like, that's an interesting perspective, what we're doing is that we're processing, and that's what we're supposed to do, right? So we're processing. So last night, as I'm listening to these other folks that are in the class, and I know because I'm a talker, y'all know, I'm gonna add my little 2 cents to the conversation and then have it be what it is. But this woman said that that they couldn't go into the promised land because they were slaves and they were used to somebody else taking care of them. And I thought to myself, like, it was like I hit a bump. Ah! I hit a bump. And I thought, damn it, if somebody hadn't enslaved them, then they wouldn't be in the predicament. This is the same thing that happened over when they were killing, when we went into the Middle East and wanted to topple a government and kill Osama bin Laden and all of these people, where before the government was doing so much and giving them the stuff that they need, we go over there with our idea of capitalism and try to impose our way of life on somebody else. And so now all of a sudden there's a speed bump that's been hit. What do you mean? What do you mean? And so whether we were talking about in other countries where there is either a subsidized living, or whether there is, however their stuff is, there is this thing of everybody does not have to do, sometimes that people have a compulsory income. In certain countries, there is a compulsory amount of vacation time, maternity leave. That is not on the scale that ours is. Like, it's so much bigger, right? If you watch some of these programs, what we see is that our way is not the way of the world. And it always tripped me out how I could go over when I went to school over in Italy. What do you mean that we get to siesta and everything is closed down at certain times of day? What do you mean? That to me was like, it's so frustrating and ludicrous. But now here you are, and you have these people who are coming out of enslavement. And to say that they're so used to somebody else doing for them, it's not that they were lazy bums. It's not that they sitting around on a tush doing nothing. It is that someone else was making them do labor in exchange. And I'm not even going to say that this is a fair exchange, because somebody is getting over like a fat rat, right? So even here, we have people who go to work in companies and we exchange labor for a fraction of what is earned from the materials or the things that are produced. It is no way like I get $1 million and I give you $10 of it. Well, so I'm not sitting there in this thing of saying, oh, they're so used to somebody giving them something, and they're just, that was like a speed bump for me, right? Hold up. And so as we sat there and we talked about it, one of the things that came out of it was that same idea that I just shared, that unless we enlarge our thinking, or unless we expand our ideas, we are not standing in a place where we come directly out of a situation that we are in and ready to jump into another one. Sometimes there is a processing. So what I heard Reverend Cherie say is, and this was talking to me, y'all, because when people will come up to me and talk to me about, oh, you do this, you do that. And I always say, I have to say, I do this as much for me as I do for other people. This is my blessing, right? Me coming on here and talking to you is my blessing too. So I heard her say that, when you're an entrepreneur, there is one level at which you come in as an entrepreneur and you're doing what it is that you do. But the same mentality, entrepreneurial mentality that created a business, can't necessarily grow a business or sustain a business unless it gets a bigger vision. Y'all, I was like, I had to just sit back for a second and just kind of sit with that. Because and it was like that was speaking directly to me. It was one of those things like, whoa, okay, yes, there is a part of me that realizes that, right? That there is a shifting and a changing of stages at every, and we all go through this, because I want to call it a preparatory thing, but that's not the word that I'm reaching for. We all go through these stages, and the stages hopefully prepare us for the next level of existence. We don't just like um go from toddler to being a um I don't know what you call it. We don't go from being an adolescent into teenage years without there being some transition that takes place. There is a naturalness to a process that we grow through. When a woman gets pregnant, that gestation period is as much for the baby to grow as it is for her to grow. And by the time she gets to be a mom, there is something else that has occurred. You gotta sometimes, we're playing catch up. I'm watching another young couple who the girl is pregnant and the guy is just refusing to grow up, to step into the role that is required for him. There's something happening for her. And like it or not, that baby is coming. And if you're not prepared for it, you're not prepared for it, but it's coming. And you got 9 months. I mean, really, by the time you find out and then go through, you got preparation time. And if you fail to prepare, then you get caught in your unaware. And so for each and every one of us, there is a period that we go through that a shift needs to occur. And what that shift is exactly is something for us to figure out in the process. One of the things that whole thing said to me is, yes, I've been an entrepreneur. Yes, I have been doing. Now I have some folks that are here to help me. And I'm being honest with y'all. Sandra has trust issues. So I started thinking to myself, like, as she said that last night, I said, oh, that's one of the things that an entrepreneur must shift from, is thinking that I'm doing all of this myself. To now that I got help, I need to learn how to give out passwords. I need to learn how to let people take the ball and run with it. Because if I'm still sitting up in I gotta do everything, then I'm not allowing the growth that needs to occur so expansion can happen. So we gotta ask, I don't know about you, but that caused me to sit back for a minute and say, wait a minute, what the heck here? This is about all of our lives, right? This idea that I cannot walk into the promised land if I'm sitting up in my griping, in my moaning, in my complaining, in my fighting, in my, I got to change something. Something in whoever's mentality has to shift according to what it is that we are going to. And when we refuse to, I'm going to tell y'all, I don't know about y'all, but you know how I say all dis-ease is mental first. Sometimes when we refuse to change, what happens is not, just, it doesn't get done. No, there is a, there is, how do I explain this? Because what I just saw was a runner and in one of those relay races, right? And this idea that either I gotta, I gotta do what I need to do in order to pass my baton. And this could be to the next iteration of myself. It may not even be somebody else depending or waiting on me, but that may be true, right? Because there may be employees that I need to have. There may be people along my path that I need to be prepared for. That's like that man told me. He said, and this is another detour. I take these. That's like that old man who told me. He was like, he says, there's an old woman on her way to your house and you better be prepared for her. I realized that there are next stages. And unless we are about the business of thinking about the next stages, we can't stay stuck where we've been. There is something that needs to happen for the next leg of the journey, always. And so figuring out what that is so that we could rise to the level to meet it is our task to do. And so the question becomes, what do I need to do? What must I do now in order to be ready for that old woman that's coming to my house, or to be ready for the employees that are waiting for me to open up and allow them to do the job for which they have been, which they have stepped up for, right? I mean, really, so when we don't learn how to delegate, when we don't learn how to trust, when we don't learn how to communicate, when we don't learn how to just open ourselves to the possibility that there is another way, a new way, a better way, maybe perhaps if we don't open ourselves to any of that, we don't see how to get there. How do we know when it's us who's standing in the way of our own progress and our own good? I mean, at a certain point, we have got to sit down, and I'm talking to me like I'm talking to you. We've got to sit down and figure out where we are the block, where we are preventing our own growth, where we are being the one in the way. And so this idea of, of Moses, you're not going into the promised land. You're not going there because if something needed to change, if a mindset needed to change, then all of these folks needed to, to die off, right? James, you say that's you. And I'm owning my part, right? I'm owning my part as far as knowing that I have trust issues. There is and one of the things I've learned to do is ask myself the question, what's the worst that can happen here? What's the worst thing that can happen here? If I put my trust in somebody else, what's the worst? And is it something that cannot be fixed? And it never is. I mean, if you think about it, it is never anything that cannot be fixed or undone, or maybe it will propel us into something else or something more. But it is not, we know what happens if we stay here. I love that scene in The Matrix, in the movie, when, Neo gets ready to jump out of the car and she tells him to look down that road. She says, you've been down that road before, you know exactly where it ends. And that's where we are in our lives, right? Sometimes when we reject, somebody that we're attracted to, or we don't even try for a position or a promotion, or don't even try to publish our stuff, or whatever it is, when we don't try, we know what happens. We already know what happens because we've been down that road before. So now, as we come to this juncture, we know that there is something new that needs to happen so that we can go on the next leg of the journey. And so sometimes it is in the doing. It's in the doing that we get the download. It's in the doing. So before I was ordained, there was a part of me that kept telling people, "Ooh, I ain't getting ordained," right? I was like, I was already in pulpits and preaching in churches and stuff like that, but I kept saying, I'm not getting ordained. That was my thing. And when somebody was asking me why, I was like, because there is so much required of a minister. There is, there's this idea that they should be, they should have certain qualities. I'm honest. I've got integrity. I've got all of that stuff, but I ain't never been no good girl. Right? I tell you in a minute, I ain't never been no good girl. I went to Egypt as a total stranger and almost got stoned, right? Because I ain't no good girl. I am not the one that sits there and tries to suppress my womanness, my sexuality, none of that stuff. I am not demure and meek and all of that stuff, and ain't about to be, right? And so I kept saying, I'm not, that's not, right? I was in resistance mode. And then honestly, the only reason I decided, and I was like sitting up there thinking I was okay in that realm. I was okay there. But then Reverend Jackson, who had been grooming me, I will say. I mean, he'd been working with me, studying with me, grooming me. When he started to I want to use the word deteriorate. That's what I'm going to say, because it was a gradual breakdown. It was his ideas started not being clear. He got a chair and he wanted to sit in the chair and give a sermon, and he was starting to deteriorate, and I knew it. We could all see it, right? And so there was this passing of the baton that needed to happen. Oh, there it is, right? That's what needed to happen, the passing of the baton that needed to happen, because he didn't necessarily want his church to die, And so then the question became, okay, shit or get off the pot. That's basically what it was. Like, okay, are you going to accept this, right? Are you going to accept this? And I was like, I'm sitting up there saying, it's not about the calling, because I'm already walking in my calling. That's what I felt like. But that ordination, to be thought of as a minister or a reverend, something, was something that it was just like a wall that I had run into. Like, no, right? And so now all of a sudden he's holding out this baton to me and saying, are you going to take it? And I thought, all the time and energy he had invested in me, all the faith that he had in me, all the faith that I had in myself, I had to pray about it. And I had to say, yes, okay, I will do this, right? I will do this. And so it was so interesting, because even as we talked about the ordination service and all of that stuff, I'm still dragging my heels, y'all. I was dragging my heels. All at the same time, just praying about it. And so one of the things that I remember, I went through the process and, all the stuff that was required of me, I went through it, but still in a mode of resistance. And I was in a resistance on the days in which we went through and we talked about, or we did the trial, the testing and all of that stuff, and then the actual ceremony. And what I will say is that even in the process, even in my resistance, what I knew is that when I finally did it, there was a shift. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. Don't start me to crying. There was a shift in me that was not my own doing. It was, I just like when I was telling y'all about, I had this conversation with my mother, I felt a shift in my being. It's as if to say, because I have now accepted the responsibility, now that I had accepted that baton, the moment I took hold of it, there was a download that was made that entitled me to something different. It's like, just like when we get a promotion, there is up to that point. And then when you get that, then all of a sudden you see all of the other stuff that comes with it. And it wasn't to the detriment. It was, because it's not about other people's judgment of me, but rather it is about something opening up and saying, baby, we've been waiting on you. We've been waiting on you to accept what it is that you are supposed to do. And with your acceptance comes a different type of download, a different type of flow. It was something different that shifted. And I was like, oh, okay. And so now I don't feel like I need permission from the people that are around me, because now my permission comes from something higher. It comes from something else. And so what I realize is that all of the preparatory work that went on beforehand was preparing me for the walk that I was taking. Now, what I also realize is that being a pastor of a small church, something needs to happen in order to prepare me to be something in a bigger church. Because the same energy or the same stuff that you use to run a small church is not what you use to run a big one. It does not happen that way. And so at every stage in our life, there is something that is occurring that prepares us for the next stage. The question is, look, this is like Mission Impossible. There is an assignment if you so choose to accept it. But it comes with stuff. It comes with effort. It comes with things that we all must do. So at the same level of being single, I can't be married at the same level of consciousness that I was when I was single. I can't be a mother at the same level of consciousness I was when I was not one. I can't be an adult at the same level of thinking I was when I was a teenager or a kid. There's a shift that occurs, a growth that must occur, and we all have to grow into something. Now, it's amazing because sometimes what we see is that people are trudging along, right? And then all of a sudden, here comes retirement. And you see people that then all of a sudden, okay, I'm going to retire. And then what? What? I mean, what? And come on. how do you, it's kind of like those moving sidewalks that you experience in the airport, and sometimes people, when they're on the moving sidewalk, sometimes you still walking, or sometimes you just stop, but there's a certain point at which that moving sidewalk stops, and then it's like, right, okay, now the efforting needs to step up, or it needs to, something needs to happen. But we've got to recognize that at every point, life is about the movement. It's about the progression. It's about something that is happening. I know even my body does not maintain itself at the same level now, as as at the age I am now, as it did when I was 30 or when I was 18. It's not the same. There's more efforting that this thing takes to do what it does. And so, there is always something. Life is movement. It is movement. It is growth. It is progression. And it's really just, how do I find out in this space what is required of me? And what must I do? Who must I become in order to be ready for the next level of my existence? And so as I pondered that last night, because I want my promised land, right? If I can see the promised land, what does it take for me to get into it? What does it take for the veil that has kind of kept me out of it? What does it take for me to get into it? And so that becomes the question. And you know what? And for each and every one of us, this is different. It's not this. We all have a highly individualized curriculum, right? And our things are for us. Now, it may have similarities, because motherhood is motherhood, right? And so there are similarities that we individualize in our lives. For a minister is, there are similarities, but we don't all start off at the same. And so what needs to happen may be at different levels or different areas that we need to then start to escalate to. Everett of Cleveland says personal work occurs in segments or units. Sometimes we get stuck inside a unit of work trying to figure it out, and it is so that is so true, right? I have seen people who and talk to people. It's amazing to me. I've talked to, because I'll just put it like this. In dating, there's this stage called talking. They used to call it courting, right? But there's this stage like we talking. We're talking to see if it's a good fit. And so I've talked to men before, and you listen to the conversation and you can almost pick up where they got stuck, right? You can almost pick up in from what they're saying that there is a stuckness in them. There's I've come this far and I'm not going any farther. Or there is a, sometimes it depends on, what they saw at home. There was this one guy, and I know this is not necessarily, but you can tell people who have been stuck either because they went to prison or because they didn't allow themselves to grow past a certain point. And that's one of the things that I wish we could tell our young sisters too, that and brothers, right? To kind of listen for the stuckness where you can't get past. So I see this woman who is 7 months pregnant, and she's with a man who refuses to step up. He is not going to step up. And had she been listening and paying attention, she would have known before she ever got pregnant that this guy wasn't going to do anything except for donate sperm. Because when she met him, he was already, still suckling as a grown man at his mother's tit. He wasn't about to, he ain't about to step into manhood. He is not about to do that for her. And I don't know if that was because he went into prison at an early age and came out, or I don't know what the stuckness is, but she ain't the one that's gonna make him unstuck. Because the proof is in the pudding. What you've seen so far. We always talk about past performance, sometimes indicates future potential. He's stuck. And so, yes, we get stuck in a unit until we get sick and tired of being stuck there. And then at a certain point, we got to start throwing off that stuff and say, well, you know what? This can no longer contain me. And so, once I started being something, y'all, when it's funny because when people come up to me and say, oh, I see you doing this and I see you doing that, I cannot not do this at this point. I don't know if you understand that. Only thing I could do is go bigger or higher. But the moment you get accustomed to spirit flowing through you or doing something that is a progression, when you don't do it, you feel like you are about to explode, like you're going crazy. That's why you see people who, especially child stars or people who have been out in front of places, there is they have to do drugs in order to deal with the stuff that keeps coming, because it's got to have an outlet. It's got to go somewhere. And so as we move through this, as we do what it is that we do, spirit begins to use you in a particular way, and once you get accustomed to that, it's kind of like a detox. Once you get accustomed to things, you're gonna be accustomed to. I don't care if it's eating a certain number of times a day, if it's having sex every day, if it's talking every day, if it's whatever it is, you are always being prepared for the next stage of it. It's not, you don't go back. And if you go back, then you got to figure out then, because I remember when I originally came off air, I was so freaking depressed. I was out there. I felt like I was like a walking zombie. Like, I don't know what to do, where to go. I don't know. I'm lost. I was lost. And so this becomes part of what I do. And so, it is all of us just figuring out, okay, am I going to wander in the wilderness for 40 years? Or am I going to, like Jesus said, I got to be about my business? What does that mean? And what does it look like for you? Right? What does that mean? And what does it look like for you? I guess that's what I got for y'all today. It's time for me to go. I can't even believe I snuck up on 9 o'clock that quick. But that's what I got for you. What's next? and we all got to be about the business of figuring out our next steps, right? I guess if you ain't doing nothing, it's easy to stop because you ain't doing nothing anyway, right? Yeah, I guess. But if you're doing something, then you got to keep doing something. You got to progress. What does that mean? What does it mean for you? What does that look like for you? That's the question. I'm doing this. I'm doing this, and and I'm loving it. But I also realize that, yeah, there's next steps. All right, that was rich, and I got that's not even all that I wanted to talk about. But I'll talk about whatever tomorrow. I got to get back and finish this book. But tomorrow. Sufficient unto this day and the fullness thereof. Right? But let's be about the business of figuring out, if you are stuck, if you're stuck in a unit, right? What needs to happen for you to get out of that unit? Is it you that's blocking yourself? Right? Is it my trust issues that's blocking me from doing what I need to do? Is it that I don't know how to delegate? What is it? All of us have to figure that out for ourselves. Tracy said, "Oh, you talking to me? Working on it, and we'll be getting my message out there soon." Yes, girl. Yes, yes, yes. I I will tell you that the way spirit works with me is if I don't do it, it's not necessarily kind. The same thing that is a gift can be a curse if you don't use it. And I'll use the analogy of water, right? And we could use this on anything. Water is a wonderful thing when you respect it. But don't respect it, and that doggone thing, not only can it knock down your house and wash away everything that has been in its path. The water is amazing. It can take us out of here in a split second. Fire is the same way. When you got fire, you could use it to do a number of things, but don't respect it, and it'll destroy everything in its path. That's everything. That's life. So when you got a gift coming through you, when you got a blessing coming through you, if you don't use it, if you don't figure out how to put a saddle on that mug and ride it, that darn thing will run you over. It'll burn you. It'll eat its way through your soul. And it may look like it shows up as dis-ease. It may look like it shows up as something else. But I'm gonna tell you, that's how it works. It's just metaphorically, we just changing around characters, but that's still the same thing. What's a blessing can be a curse if you don't have respect for it and use it. All right, that's what I got for you. And I don't know, y'all may not believe me, right? Y'all may be like, that girl don't know what she's talking about. That's cool. What my grandmama used to say, keep on living. Keep on living. Would this thing get out of the way? Keep on living. You'll see. All right. Love y'all. Yeah. Yeah. share you with the world, right? Share you with the world. Because that's what we're here for. We ain't here for your own selfish self. Oh, I'm just here to make some money and get some clothes and to, get a degree in the house and live comfortably. Bullshiggity, right? Be a blessing.